Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much to everyone for making this time and for being on time. My name is Shana Shamim. I am going to be your co-host for today. So inclusive talk is really a feminist discourse that's invented to educate, inform, and promote disability voices in current affairs. It's hosted by 3 young women with disabilities, and those are myself, Ashana Matovu, and Maureen Kalunji, who are all here. They will be given time to introduce themselves. Yeah, so Asha is actually here with us. Asha, could you please introduce yourself, and then Maureen can go after you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Asha Ajrush Namatov. I am an inclusion advocate, specifically very passionate about inclusive disability employment. I run an organization called Nafetu Soboda, an organization that advocates on behalf and with little people. Adults of average height, equivalent that of a 6-year-old. Welcome to Inclusive Talk. We've had a series on SDGs. We're on SDG10 today. I don't know that Shana has caught you up. Apologies for coming in late. Our sessions are normally interactive. Everyone has a chance to chip in and say something. Welcome and have a good evening. Thank you.
Good evening to our listeners and our speakers of the day. My name is Maureen Kalunji. I'm a gender and disability inclusion advocate. I'm sorry for my voice, I've been singing. I'm happy to be here with you all as we are going to discuss about reduced inequalities, and that's Sustainable Development Goal number 10. We are ready to learn from each other since we are in this work of advocacy. Nice to meet you all, and I'm ready to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Oh yeah, I am Shana Shamim, and I am a gender and disability rights expert. I forget to mention that all the time. So yeah, just to catch you up quickly, we are spotlighting the Sustainable Development Goals, and previously we had Miss Florence Ndagire, a PhD finalist and a lawyer. She spoke to us about Sustainable Development Goal 1, no poverty, a goal that is not only topmost on the global agenda, but also for Uganda because of the many poverty eradication and social protection programs in place. So tonight we are focusing on Sustainable Development Goal 10. It is stated that 2022 witnessed the highest number of refugees at 34.6 million, with triggers like the COVID-19 pandemic, conflict and climate change likely to heighten that number to greater proportions and widen the gap of inequalities within and between countries. So while these inequalities do exist amongst persons with disabilities and marginalized communities of persons with disabilities, these inequalities are further escalated by statelessness, migration and refugee status, with refugee women with and without disabilities bearing the brunt of invisibility in humanitarian action because of gender, disability, origin, and socioeconomic status. So tonight we do shift the focus to Sustainable Development Goal 10, reduced inequalities, with stakeholders serving marginalized communities of refugees with and without disabilities to share with us their knowledge, experience, and observation of Uganda's progress in SDG10, with specific attention to how to reach communities of refugees with and without disability. So this is why we have the Executive Director of Association for Refugees with Disability. And we also have the Technical Advisor for the Association of Refugee Women with Disabilities in Uganda. I'm going to give a chance to James, the Executive Director of Association of Refugees with Disability, to introduce himself and give us a brief background of himself and the association. James, please go on.
Thank you, Shana. I'm called Mumba Mungu James. I work for Association of Refugees with Disability, ARD, in Uganda as the Executive Director. ARD is an organization that serves refugees with disabilities, of which now it deals in urban and 6 refugee settlements. We focus on different things, general advocacy, which is, I can say, is a global for all the activities and the implementation that are related to disability issues. And I'm very glad to be in this discussion as the SDG on reduced inequalities. It is very crucial for refugees with disabilities and mostly women. And let's discuss more later, and I'll be glad to give my insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Now the floor goes to Roger. Roger has a French name. It's actually Roger, but the pronunciation is French. So, Roger, please go on.
Hello, colleagues, listeners, good evening, and nice to be part of this platform. Yes, Shana, thank you for having me on board. Definitely, I am a Cameroonian by nationality, and Cameroon is a bilingual country. You have the English and French-speaking part of Cameroon. But I come from the English-speaking part of Cameroon, but I happen to also learn French because it's part of our official languages. And definitely, so many people don't know that there is a conflict in Cameroon that started since 2016, and has claimed over 7,000 lives with over 800 people in refugee camps in Nigeria. There is currently a conflict that is about the English-speaking people want to secede from the French-speaking part of Cameroon to create their own independent state. So for we are getting to the CDN now. Children are not going to school in that part of Africa, and in fact, they are still really suffering. So I am a climate and gender justice advocate. I support Association for Refugee Women in Uganda as their technical advisor. Association for Refugee Women in Uganda is started like a self-help group of different women from different communities, Congo, Sudan, Somali, Rwanda. Like they used to come together as a group every Sunday, and they just share their issues and try to lift up one another. Then they now expanded and moved and decided to become a legal NGO in Uganda. So they are focusing on how do they remove the barriers, how do they remove inequalities between host communities and refugee women. So as we go along the line, we'll be able to discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger. I will leave the floor to Maureen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our speakers of the day, and I would love to start our conversation through the questioning. I would love to ask Mr. James. James, refugee women with disability face a triple disadvantage in attaining equality in all spheres of life. How can refugee women with disabilities be included in development efforts?
Okay, thank you very much, Maureen. And thanks for everyone who is in this discussion, the speakers and the listeners. As I said, I work for Association of Refugees with Disabilities. So as we discuss a pressing and often overlooked issue, the inclusion of refugee women with disabilities in our development efforts, as we strive towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 10, which focuses on reducing inequalities, I think we must confront on multifaceted challenges faced by this group. So refugees with disabilities encounter a unique intersection of disadvantages. They face gender-based discrimination, the stigma associated with disabilities, and hardship of being displaced as well. Each of these factors alone present a significant barrier, but combined, they create a formidable obstacle of achieving equality in all spheres of life. Firstly, let's acknowledge the critical need for inclusive policy making, whereby policies should not only be gender sensitive and disability inclusive, but also specifically tailored to address the intersection of these identities. This means involving refugee women with disabilities in the policy-making processes to ensure their voices and experiences directly shape the initiative designed to support them. So for the case of education is another concern for reducing inequalities. Like access to education for women with disabilities should be prioritized, ensuring that learning environments are accessible and inclusive. This includes providing necessary assistive technologies, creating disability-friendly infrastructures, and training educators to support diverse learning needs. For the case of economic empowerment, it is equally vital. So development programs must create pathways for refugee women with disabilities to gain meaningful employment and financial independence. This can be achieved through vocational training, both in urban and in refugee settlements and within the host communities as well. To their and these trainings should be tailored to their abilities, providing microfinance opportunities, and ensuring workplace accommodation. These measures will help these women contribute to their communities and economies, fostering a sense of dignity and self-worth as well. For the case of healthcare services, the healthcare services must also be inclusive and accessible. Most refugee women with disabilities often face compounded health challenges, and it is crucial to provide comprehensive health care that address their specific needs, mostly in the refugee settlements. This includes physical, mental, and reproductive health services, all delivered in a manner that respects their autonomy and dignity. Community-based support system also can play a crucial role in inclusion. Like grassroots organizations and local communities should be mobilized to support refugee women with disabilities, fostering environments of acceptance and support. Peer-to-peer networking can provide essential emotional and practical assistance. So to actively implement these strategies, we need robust data collection and research, because this is after doing data collection, it is where It is where we can understand the real challenges of this vulnerable group. So disaggregated data by gender, disability, and refugee status will help us understand the specific needs and challenges of refugee women with disabilities, allowing for more targeted and effective interventions. As we are still continuing with our discussion, finally, I would recommend that government, NGOs, the private sectors, and the international bodies must work together to ensure resources are allocated effectively, best practices are shared, and efforts are coordinated to maximize impacts. Therefore, achieving the SDGs10 requires us to address the triple disadvantage faced by refugee women with disability through comprehensive, inclusive, and collaborative efforts. So therefore, by prioritizing their inclusion in all spheres of life, policy making, education, employment, healthcare, and economic support, we make significant stride towards reducing inequality and ensuring no one is left behind. Thank you very much. I call upon others to contribute as we move on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James, for that wonderful discussion and giving us a highlight on things that need to be done so that women with disability, especially the refugee, be included in development efforts. I'll hand over to Asha to ask Roger.
Thank you, Maureen. Good evening, everyone. If I may have an assist, the name is Roger. I was waiting for you to pronounce it. I have a phobia for mispronouncing people's names. So, is it Roger? How can I refer to you, please?
Roger is okay.
Roger is okay. So, thank you. So, Roger, what are some of the factors contributing to a variety of inequalities within refugee communities, and how can we address some of these factors? Did you get the question?
Yes, I got it. Once more, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to our listeners and the different speakers. You see, the first challenge we have is to understand who is a refugee. It's somebody who left their country forcefully, and definitely arriving their destination, they are arriving that destination empty-handed. So if you see an able person arriving empty-handed and you see a disabled person who might have been affected on their way because they have been forcefully displaced, arriving the same destination. So you can now see the difference in terms of the impact of the suffering a refugee with disability will go through compared to a refugee who is an able person. So women with disability, especially those that are refugees, their own suffering is triple, like the challenges they face in life. First, as a refugee in Uganda, you face the issue of discrimination. Like if you go around the neighborhoods, you hear people saying, refugees have come to take all our opportunities. Refugees are, in fact, they are favored more than us who are here. So you have that kind of a discrimination. And even assessing health services, you go to the health center, you are a refugee. Now for them to take care of you, give you the medication that is required, they will have to give you medication that will not be able to support you in terms of your needs. We have the language barrier. Now refugees, they have this issue of language barrier. They come from different communities. They come from Congo. They speak French. They speak Swahili. They come from Somalia, Sudan. They speak Arabic. So integrating into the community becomes very difficult for them because they can't speak the language. That is why at Association of Refugee Women in Uganda, we run a language classes. We run English language classes free of charge for refugees and refugee women who can come every time. We run both morning and afternoon sessions from Monday to Friday. They come and they are taught how to read, write, and speak English so that we are able to close that gap. Now, when you look at the economic aspect of life, you find that refugees in Uganda, now, the qualifications they leave their country with are not the same qualifications that is respected in Uganda. So you might find out that somebody is highly qualified in their country, reaching Uganda because the curriculum is different. They are not able to give you a certificate equation to what you have. So you find yourself, because of the language barrier, the school systems that you attended and the certificate that you have, refugees might end up finding to do some kind of petty jobs. And because people know they are refugees, when they want to offer them these jobs, they offer them these jobs and they pay them very cheap. For example, you see somebody, they will say, okay, you come and be an askari somewhere. You go and be an askari and they are paying you 100,000 per month. Really, how much are you eating? So you find all of these kind of inequalities around as challenges that refugees really go through in terms of as being refugees. And those for women, in fact, it's really, really difficult. But there is something we really need to look at in terms of reducing inequalities. We have to look at the policies. We have policies that are like the policies are just written and put on tables. People do speeches and presentations, yet the person on ground is not feeling the impact. For example, refugee women with disabilities, they face multiple challenges. They are often abandoned even in the humanitarian settings. In humanitarian work, people just say refugees, but they forget to know that there are several vulnerable categories when it comes to classifying refugees. Refugees, women with disability, their voices are always ignored. Because of the stigma that comes with being a woman with disability, then there is nothing they can offer. And you find several organizations and even institutions, they tend to focus on the charity model. Like, okay, we just pity you, so we can just throw the crumbs at you so you can pick it and you are able to survive. But the reality now is we need to strengthen the voices of other refugee women with disabilities to be able to articulate their issues by themselves and create platforms for them to speak for themselves. Because most often there is this thing of, yes, we brought them on board. But when you look at it, did they participate? Or did you bring them there just to get photos so that you are able to share with people and say, yes, we are inclusive, and that they were in the hall and their voices were not heard. So we really need to strengthen the voices of refugee women advocates so that in every platform where they find themselves, they should be able to articulate their issues, and policies should be designed in ways that take into consideration their challenges. If we look at another aspect of accessibility in terms of public spaces, you have the Disability Act, you have all of these policy documents, but in reality, on ground, what is happening? You still have buildings that don't have ramps, you still have buildings that don't have lifts. You still have so many organizations, even organizations, they talk about inclusiveness, but they feel like it's just about, let's tell people we are inclusive. No. Even organizations working with refugees have to really mainstream disability in their programs. Not like, because what I have seen in most cases, you find they have a project on disability and the entire organization is not working on disability. So the other activities they are running, they are just doing their activities and moving without considering the targeted, making sure that the voices of persons with disability ahead in different programs as they focus just on their projects. So we need organizations to mainstream disability, to take disability at the forefront and make sure the women and girls with disability are part of the project from the conception to the design to the implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and review. And at the end, they can be able to now share best practices, what is working and what is not working. So women with disabilities, they need to be participants, not spectators in terms of issues that concerns them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose. I can feel your passion coming right through. I could listen to you all night because I'm very passionate about women issues. We are all very passionate about gender equality, and as women with disabilities, we feel you and we hear you, and we hope that through such dialogue like this one, we can improve on things and make things better for everyone. So thank you for your submission. Maureen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Roshi, for that wonderful insight you have given us. And really, it's so heartening when we find that women with disabilities are not considered, like their issues are not worked on. But we hope with through these various talks we are having, the different engagements, we shall see a change among women with disabilities, especially refugees. And now to go back to James. James, in the previous presentation, he talked about care, but now I'm going so much into. I wanted to know more. How can access to education and healthcare of refugee women with disability be made more equitable?
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen. Yeah, as we serve refugees with disabilities, I would say that to make access to education and health care for refugee women with disabilities more equitable in line with the SDG10 reduced inequalities, I would say it is essential to adopt a multifaceted approach that addresses both systematic and immediate barriers. This would involve integrating inclusive policies, ensuring adequate funding, and fostering partnership among various stakeholders. Firstly, inclusive policies need to be implemented at both national and international levels, so which means governments and organizations should prioritize legislation that mandates equal access to education and health services for all refugees, with specific provision for women with disabilities, as the Refugee Act 2006 states it clearly. But these policies should be accompanied by strong enforcement mechanisms and accountability structures to ensure compliance. Because we find we have existing policies, but people do not abide by the policies. Secondly, targeted funding is crucial. Allocating sufficient resources to create accessible infrastructures and provide specialized services such as sign language interpreters, accessible learning materials, and adaptive health care equipment can significantly improve access for women with disabilities. So funding should also support training for health care providers to build their capacity to serve this vulnerable group effectively. Partnership and collaboration among governments, NGOs, UN agencies, and the private sectors can amplify efforts. So we need joint initiatives that can pool resources and expertise to develop comprehensive programs that address the unique needs of refugee women with disabilities. Community-based organizations, particularly those led by disabled individuals, should be actively involved in the planning and implementation of these initiatives to ensure they are culturally and contextually appropriate. Because you find, for example, I can take an example of refugee settlements. You find they store medicines, but you find the medicines that they have doesn't meet the need of refugees within the settlements. So there is need of these people to be included in the decision-making process before purchasing medicines. These people should be assessed so that the healthcare management should know which medicine is needed to be bought for the refugees, but instead of just storing medicine that will expire when people didn't use it yet, we have people who need serious treatment. There is need for public awareness campaign, which can also play a significant role in changing social attitudes and reducing stigma towards disability and refugee status. Such campaigns should promote the rights and capacities or capabilities of women with disabilities, highlighting their potential contribution to society given opportunities. So, lastly, advocacy for inclusive health care system within hosting countries can ensure that refugee women with disabilities are not left behind. This includes integrating disability-friendly practices into mainstream services, as my friend Roger has said, and ensuring that emergency responses, such as those during pandemics, are inclusive of all vulnerable population. In conclusion, I will say achieving equitable access to health care for refugee women with disabilities requires comprehensive policy frameworks, as I've said, targeted funding, strong partnership, robust data still, public awareness, and inclusive systems. By addressing these areas, of course, we can make a significant stride towards reducing inequality and achieving our goal forth by SDG10. Thank you very much. I submit.
Thank you, James, for your
Thank you so
submission.
much, James.
Maureen, you can go on.
Okay, thank you so much, James, for your submission. It's good. It's great that have those things you have talked about to be put in place. If they listen and put these things in place, I hope women with disabilities, especially refugees, will benefit so much and will have their rights will be upheld. That's what I can say. Thank you so much. I hand over to you, Asha.
Thank you, Maureen. James, I wanted to ask, in your submission, you're talking about education needs and developing accessible infrastructure. What can you tell us about the state of education of children with disabilities? And of course, Roger, I might come to you with the same question. What is the experience on the ground? Are these kids getting access to classes, and what is really happening out there?
Thank you very much. I've brought this point because we are running an inclusive education and health services project in two refugee settlements, Nakivale and Ramwanja refugee settlement. We have been training healthcare service providers and school head teachers on these issues of refugees with disabilities. And we have visited, because we have been doing a physical accessibility audit. After training them, we could do a physical accessibility audit to assess the schools within those refugee settlements. But surprisingly, yes, there are negative attitudes within the families of children with disabilities, which still need awareness campaign and advocacy, which should be serious. And also at school, the schools within the refugee settlements lack special needs teachers or teachers who can understand disability. So we visited 12 schools, but among the 12 schools, we only got 2 primary schools in Ramwanja refugee settlements that had at least one special needs teacher, and those schools had database for learners with disabilities as well. So you find schools cannot accommodate learners with disabilities. And some schools are not inclusive. You find most of the school administration block, they are not inclusive. Like the wheelchair users cannot access if it is by time of consulting a teacher. So that learner finds it difficulty to reach the office or to meet the teacher. An example of a school, secondary school in Ramwanja Senior Secondary School, which, some classes are very inclusive, but the administration block is not accessible at all. So you find they use stairs, of which even a person using crutches finds it difficult to access. So for a wheelchair users, then it becomes worse. So this shows that even if the learners can be enrolled in schools, still they can find it difficult to join or to continue, and which may lead to school dropout for these learners with disabilities. Additionally, we have learners with visual impairments, but within all the schools that we visited, they didn't have inclusive textbooks. Here I mean textbooks that are printed, that are on large printout that can be accessed by a learner of visual impairment. Only at the same school, Ramwanja Secondary School, it is where last year they tried to advocate for one learner who was in senior 4 to get those inclusive question papers and answer sheets, which are on large printout, which helped the learner to answer the questions and also increased on his performance. Which means since those schools we visited don't have inclusive textbooks or learning materials, then it means a high level percentage of schools in Uganda don't even think of providing, the government doesn't think of providing these inclusive reading materials and textbooks. So you find education is very difficult and challenging to learners with disabilities, and mostly in refugee settlements where these people cannot even afford to buy one textbook. Yeah, thank you very much. I think I've answered to your question.
Thank you so much, James. The information is actually heartbreaking. We have on the call a fierce advocate for SDG4, Linda Eunice. I think you have your work cut out for you. I think you might have to engage with James on that. So thank you, James. And I know that this takes a concerted effort. It is not a one person's job, but I know that if we all combine efforts, we can improve the well-being and the learning outcomes of all children in the world, especially those in the African continent. So I'm going to go to Roger at this moment. Yes, Roger, what initiatives have you led or supported to promote collaboration between refugee communities, host governments, and international organizations to achieve SDG10, and how have these partnerships made a positive impact? Roger, over to you.
Okay, once more, thank you for having me back. But let me throw a little bit of light on something before I come back. You see, the rights of persons with disability is protected under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And at that level, countries ratify that treaty and they tend to domesticate it. That is why we have the Disability Act. But there is another very important document that even organizations working in humanitarian settings, they tend to ignore. There is a document, the Interagency Standing Committee Guidelines for Inclusion of Persons with Disability in Humanitarian Action. That document is a full-fledged document that states and gives guidelines on any work, livelihood, education, health, to ensure that persons with disability are part and parcel of everything that we are doing, whether they are refugees or they are members of the host communities who are persons with disability. So this document, I would recommend so many people to try to look at it, try to understand it and read it. Then you understand that engaging even in the educational aspect, if we want an inclusive educational sector, then we must follow the universal design. A universal design is a design that takes into consideration the needs of everybody. I should not come to this building and I am looking at, I have to start struggling because I'm a person with disability. No. By the time I reach this building, I already know the services and infrastructure is already in place for me so that I am able to get the services I want without necessarily needing to go through another person to be able to. So we have to look at that concept. Now, looking at how we have engaged. You see, we have a project we are running in Kampala, supported by the Refugee-led Innovation Fund. We are looking at food insecurity. If you see, about 65% of refugees living in Kampala go to bed with an empty stomach, or even what they eat. They just eat what they see, not because it is nutritious. Then if you look at the waste that is generated in Kampala, Kampala is generating a struggling 778,500 tons of waste. And you have daily food wasted per person fluctuates from 1.21 to 0.4 kilograms. So you see, they have not, the refugees, especially refugees with disability, are there struggling. They don't have food. But you find a lot of, most of, when you look at our trash cans along the way, what you see there more is organic food. You see people even eat, you go to the market and you see all of that is being dumped and people are there who don't have food to eat. So we have our project with supported by UNHCR Refugee-Led Innovation Fund, where we are telling people, if you follow us online, we are telling people, you bring the food, don't waste the food, give us the food. We have people who are hungry. So we even go to supermarkets, we go to markets, we go to everywhere, and we collect the food and we identify refugee household, especially refugee household where they are headed by persons with disability, women with disability, we have orphans, we have widows. So we now come back and we package this food and we go distribute to these refugees in Kampala. So that is a kind of what we are doing right now and we will continue to do. So I am still launching an appeal. If even in your house you have a plate of food that you are satisfied, don't throw it, just call us. We will come and collect it. We know a refugee somewhere who is sleeping hungry and needs that food. So the good thing is one of the challenges we have with these programs are like they are project funded and they are short-based. Remember, it's difficult to get
Sorry to interrupt, Roger. I think you're having a network interruption. Your voice is breaking up. Or your audio is breaking up.
Roger, sorry about that. Your network is very disturbing and your voice is very hard to comprehend. Okay, you try speaking now.
Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you, but there's interference with your voice.
Sorry about that. I also have a challenge because my accent is not the familiar accent you people have here. So my accent is most of the time gives me problem because people tend to like my accent is not. So I don't know.
No, the accent was okay. It's just you sounded like there was something on your microphone that your voice was different. But go on. It's clear now.
Okay. So like I was saying, we have this program where we are supporting refugees. We are food donations we are distributing to refugees. The challenge we have with these programs are like they are mostly project based and they are project focused, which are always for 1 year, 2 years. Then the project is done. Then you see because of the financial needs of the project, you are not able to continue. The funding landscape is also changing drastically because they are focusing more on current crises and conflicts. And you can see that there is Ukraine, there is Gaza. So most of the big powers, they are putting support in those directions. And in Africa, we have to struggle. But I think Africa needs an African solution where our leaders themselves have to be really, really accountable to the people to be able to like give us what we deserve, not what they think for us. If you look at how do we make this program sustainable, I think one of the things we need to do is to work with persons with disabilities so that at the beginning of the design of the project, their ideas can shape it in a way that it will help us get into the sustainability part without getting challenges, so that by the end, they are able to now see how they can continue. So we need guidance from persons with disabilities and organizations of persons working with disability to be able to shape the project. So also we need to look at how do we strengthen the capacity of organizations in humanitarian setting to be inclusive. How do they develop programs that they bring on board persons with disability so that the persons with disability can shape how the project or the program is implemented based on its quality. Then we look at accountability. I think every stakeholder needs to know what is my role and what should I do and what should I not do. Looking forward in the days ahead, we are thinking of really bringing these duty bearers in front of persons with disability and engaging in that conversation, so they should be able to tell the persons with disability what they are doing for them in all the positions of leadership that they are holding. Looking at health services, looking at education, looking at employment opportunities. So there should be that accountability. We should not only look at duty bearers like, okay, the law is there, they are the custodian of the law. At least a certain period, they should be able to tell us what they have achieved. Yes, they have designed the policies. Have the policies been implemented properly? Then we need really the effective participation of persons with disabilities and organizations for persons with disability. In fact, that is a whole treasure that is being neglected, because I think if we could make use of, for example, if you are designing a program at the early stage, you are able to build the capacity of persons with disability and you are able to use them as enumerators during that data collection process. Then when you are designing your program, they will be able to give you the real, what they think will work, how their needs are going to be met. So working with persons with disabilities and organizations for persons with disabilities can go a long way to strengthen that collaboration and partnership between institutions, so that where there are gaps in mainstream organizations for persons with disability can come in and fill that gap with their technical expertise and make sure our programs are sustainable and inclusive in the long run for the good of all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger, for that. I have loved what you said about the interagency guidelines. I think this is a document that we all overlook, even myself. And also another takeaway from me is reading about the Refugee Act of 2006. Thank you so much for that, James. So Gilbert has something to add on to this discussion. Gilbert, please go on before we go to the next set of questions.
Yes, greetings, dear all. I think you can listen to me. Hello?
Yes, Gilbert, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Gilbert Binezero Hirwa, and I am located in Ichakatu Refugee Settlement. Last time it was this month, I attended the annual Talk to You Regulator Summit. It was a summit which was connecting NGOs and regulators. They are regulators. Regulators are URISB, that is Uganda Registration Service Bureau, that is URA, Uganda Revenue Authority. There is also NGO Bureau. The regulators are those who are putting on the regulations we are following as NGOs. I work for Let's Help International Organization as a partnership and fundraising officer. It is a refugee lady located in Ichakatu Refugee Settlement. And I am also the director of African Initiatives for an American-based organization called Little by Little. So on our subject, reduced inequalities, how inclusive is implementation, we are talking about the inclusiveness of people with disabilities. But as I begin, I am a refugee, as I began saying. And for us refugees, I don't know if also lack of knowledge in the language is also a disability. But the problem we have, most refugees from Democratic Republic of Congo, from Rwanda, from Burundi, they are from countries which were colonized by French and the Belgian countries. So they are French speakers. As we are in Uganda, it is very hard for those refugees to be inclusive in the system because the system is using English. And most of us, we use French and Swahili and other local languages, which hinders refugees to have access on everything designed for them. There is no inclusiveness in what refugees are really receiving. It might be help, but if you include them in deciding which help they need to get, I think they will also give you more ideas and opinions, whereby you find some doctors, musicians, carpenters, welders, they become farmers because they don't have access on decent jobs, because most of them, when you run from your country, you don't prepare it. Sometimes you run without your papers. So coming back again on people with disabilities, you see, if you are not including people with language accordingly to their language, it looks like the people who are supposed to serve us, this system is caring about the people who are serving us, not us. They were supposed to design the emergencies maybe to come to help us. They were supposed to design the system accordingly to refugees. If refugees are from Congo, if refugees are from Rwanda, then the people who are supposed to work in that system have to be people who are capable of speaking their languages. Not these refugees to go and adapt themselves to languages. So people with disabilities are suffering more than these other refugees. Because you find, for example, there was this man, he was from the northern, I don't remember where he was from, the side of Gulu. He had a disability of speaking. He couldn't speak, he could use signs. Sometimes refugees, when they are advocating, we most of the time advocate for capacity building, for resource mobilization, that we have financial gaps. But we also have to advocate for capacity building for these people who are helping us, whereby you find no NGO can have someone who can use signs to explain what someone who have a disability to speak has as a problem. You see, that's a first one. Secondly, when you try to see the way as refugees we are taken, you struggle like 5 years to get an asylum seeker. When you get it, you celebrate like it is a miracle. So you don't feel included because you feel like they are giving you a chance, not your right. So it is still a very big problem whereby the help we receive looks like an offer, looks like a mercy, not a right. Yet refugee rights are supposed to be human rights. So I tried to mix up accordingly to the whole refugee system, but I think the inclusiveness and the implementation narrative has to change, because they try to help us, they help us, and we thank them so much. We thank UNHCR and partners, the OPM, the host countries, how they try to help refugees, but it is better if they also include them in what they deserve. You cannot help me when you don't know what I need. You are going to design the help you are going to provide me, but without me, that help maybe is not the one I need most. Thank you so much. I think everyone has what to say. And thank you so much for the host. Thank you for preparing a such conversation. It's really important, and we wish we can have such spaces, programs, so many times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gilbert, for that submission and also for the experience on the ground. Roger earlier talked about the language being a barrier to inclusion, and we have taken note of that. So I will let Maureen go on, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gilbert and Roger for your input. To go back to James, we all know that organizations, especially that are in refugee settlements and host communities, are facing challenge. Now, I would love to know what challenges do organizations of hard-to-reach communities like refugee face in forming effective partnerships for sustainable development, and how can these challenges be addressed?
Thank you very much, Maureen. On this question of organization of hard to reach communities such as refugees face several challenges in forming effective partnerships for sustainable development, particularly in a context of sustainable development goal, which aims this goal 10, which aims to reduce inequality. These challenges can be complex and multifaceted, particularly within refugee settlements and among refugee populations. One primary challenge is lack of representation and voice. Refugee communities often have limited access to decision-making processes and platforms where they can advocate for their needs. This can lead to partnerships that do not fully consider the unique challenges and perspectives of refugees, including those with disabilities. For instance, organizations like Association of Refugees with Disability, ARD, may struggle to have their voices heard within broader development initiatives because the existing partners do not recognize the voices of persons with disabilities. Also, they don't even mind on revising the existing policy as the interagency committee guideline, as my friend has said. There are documents that exist, they are not abided by. So to address this, it is crucial to ensure inclusive and participatory approaches in partnership formation. This can involve creating mechanisms for refugee representatives, particularly in decision-making processes, thereby ensuring that their specific needs and perspectives are integrated in development plans. For example, involving OPDs like Association of Refugees with Disabilities in consultation and planning sessions, which can help ensure that the needs of refugees with disabilities are adequately addressed, because as ARD being the only OPD in the refugee sectors, I think it is the right way that partners or the UN partners that exist in the refugee settlements, so when they have any plan, any project of refugees with disabilities, they should use ARD, the Association of Refugees with Disabilities, as their consultant organization to know more about persons with disabilities, as they can also recommend individuals with disabilities that can also show the unique challenges within their respective communities. Another significant challenge is resource constraints. Many refugee-led organizations operate with limited funding and resources, making it difficult for them to engage effectively in partnership. This can hinder their ability to contribute meaningfully to sustainable development initiatives. So in addressing these challenges, it requires targeted funding and capacity building support So in this, donors and larger development organizations can provide financial assistance and capacity building programs to refugee-led organizations, enabling them to build the necessary skills and resources to participate effectively in partnerships. For instance, funding programs specifically aimed at organizations like Association of Refugees with Disability, ARD, can help them to scale their operations and influence as well. Additionally, legal and bureaucratic barriers can impede the ability to refugee-led organizations to form partnerships. So find refugees often face restrictions on movement, work, and organizational activities due to some host country regulations. I thank the government of Uganda that has the existing policies that opens equal right to employment, but it is sudden that some partners don't even recognize those policies which exist. So the government played its role to formulate the policies, but the people are not following it. So you find we have the right to equal opportunities to work, but people do not recognize it. Another challenge is discrimination and stigma. Refugees, particularly those with disabilities, often face significant social stigma and discrimination, which can affect their ability to form partnership as well and be seen as equal and valuable partners. Then we have another challenge on information and communication gaps, which can hinder effective partnership formations. Refugee communities may have limited access to information about potential potential partnerships, funding opportunities, and development programs. So this should also be addressed by involving or creating better information dissemination systems, like utilizing technology and community network to share information about opportunities, which can help bridge these gaps. For example, you find there is an opportunity in community, but we have deaf persons in the communities who cannot access those information. So there is no system that is inclusive to all refugees and even those with disabilities, mostly the deaf person and blind people as well. So there is need of those systems that can disseminate information to everyone without leaving no one behind. In conclusion, I will say that these organizations have had to reach communities such as refugees face significant challenges in forming effective partnership for sustainable development, and in addressing these challenges, it involves ensuring inclusive partnership, providing targeted resources and capacity building, advocacy for supportive policies, combating discrimination, and improving information disseminations, which would not leave anyone behind. So by ensuring this, I think the inclusiveness in the programming within the refugee settlements and the partnership would favor everyone without leaving no one behind. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you so much, James, for your submission. And I know we are getting late, but let me hand over to Asha, I think, to ask the last question or the second last question, because it's now coming to 9. No, it's already 9.
Thank you, Maureen, and thank you, James. It seems we have a lot of information to unpack about this topic. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. So I hope we can have another opportunity where we can speak more about this. I think we can arrange with you guys and host you again. I'll quickly run to Roger and ask my final question of the evening. Roger, it looks like inequalities are just widening and becoming worse. The economic, social, and gender inequalities are just becoming worse, or they are not reducing as we would expect. So, how can we reverse this trend? In your observation, where are we going wrong? Where are we falling short? And how can we improve progress where inequalities among marginalized communities like refugees with and without disabilities are concerned? Over to you, Roger.
Okay, thank you once more for having me back. Now, I think we are living in a world that is evolving and dynamic. The world is changing too fast because when you look at, for example, women empowerment, the strive that was made in terms of gender equality, then the world finally, we were given a blow by COVID, that we went back home and now we had 5,000 people even dying in the house a day because of gender-based violence. So you see, we have a challenge where we have natural disasters, pandemics. You see, climate change is also there. By the time you think we are progressing, then you have landslides and
excuse me, Roger. We are having trouble with your audio.
Wait, let me see. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yes. So what I was saying is, though progress is being made, but we are losing it because of certain factors. For example, we have natural disasters and pandemics. We look at COVID-19, despite all the strides that were achieved in terms of women empowerment and gender equality. When COVID-19 came, women were locked back in their homes with their husbands, and we saw what happened. The rate of GBV increased tremendously. Now we also have landslides and you have flooding, climate-induced disasters. We have flooding, we have landslides. So by the time we think we are moving, we are progressing, then we see things are coming back because of the landslides and the natural disasters due to climate change. I think one of the things that is really we need to focus on is really looking at the income gap. Because under SDG10, it was supposed to be like developing countries, they had to increase the money they had to be giving to developing countries so that they are able to reduce this gap. But you see, developed countries in terms of climate change, Africa and some other countries, they are suffering from climate change, a crime they didn't commit. The polluters are there and they are still enjoying continue doing the nasty thing in terms of polluting the environment, but they are not paying for it. So we need a kind of a progressive taxation system where they reach the tax higher.
Sorry, Roger. We are having trouble again with your audio.
You are not hearing me.
We are having trouble with your audio. I don't know. I think you have an app, I think, that switches itself on.
That switches itself on the audio.
Yeah, because yes, your audio is like distorted. We can't hear you very well. It's like you have either an app or a device that distorts your voice or something. Can you try to speak and we see that has changed? Because it works for some time, then just it goes off. Oh, it seems we have lost him. Shana, Gilbert had put his hand up. I don't know. Do we have a second so that he can contribute as we hope to get Roger back before we conclude?
Yes, Gilbert, please go on.
Yes, thank you so much again. I thank you so much, and please prepare another space for a long time. Thank you, Anne Shen, the director of Little by Little, for joining, even if we were almost at the end. But as we keep advocating for the inclusiveness of people with disability in implementation of different programs designed for them, I think we also have to advocate for these NGOs, regulators, and UNHCR partners to also do anything possible to build their capacity in disability response, because most of these NGOs don't have people capable of taking care of people with disability. This also can hinder a response because if you go to a light and you can't find someone who can maybe explain the languages with signs, that is a very big problem, which shows that they don't think much. I give a light as an example. I'm not accusing them. They don't think too much about the response when it comes on people with disabilities. That's what I was saying also about languages. People with language barriers, when they are designing their program, they have to design programs accordingly to the people they are going to help. You cannot come to respond problems of someone who speaks only French and Swahili when you only speak English. You need to include in those people to also be amongst the designers of the response they need, because they understand better their problems more than anyone else. They need to include in people who can use signs in speaking, people with disabilities also in their programs, because these people understand better the problems these people with disabilities are facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. So while we wait for Roger to come back online, I am going to read some of the comments in the chat. So this is from Elizabeth Kayanga. She says, thank you, Disability Land, for the space. Same as Gilbert, thank you for the space, and it's important that we advocate for our own. Then this is from Oscar Waluku. He says, in my view, paying attention to protection mainstreaming is key to the realization of the reduced inequality within the refugee context. Similar attention can be paid to child protection to enhance the full potential of development. He also says that understanding education in refugee contexts is rather different. Education in an emergency has its own dynamics, and efforts to realize it is based on progressive realization. The twin track approach and 4 must-do actions as recommended by the Interagency Services Guidelines, reference points. This is from Oscar Waluku. Thank you so much, Oscar. I see that Roger is back online. Yeah. Roger, I have approved your request to speak, so please, you may proceed. Thank you. You can proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry for the hip hop. I don't know whether it's the internet or what. Yes, like I was saying, if we there is really need for progress. Communities they really need to be innovative because the funding is not there. Honestly, you have the bottlenecks. Despite all the good policies, they are especially getting authorization or registration for a refugee-led organization in Uganda to fully fulfill the requirements. It's a hustle. It's a hustle. You go to the different websites, you try to download the information. By the time you put together all the information, you will reach URSB. They'll tell you, you lost this one, you didn't get this one. So even the websites are not being updated to the current realities that is needed. You finish, then they say data protection policy, then in fact, the list is always very long. So it makes it very difficult for so many refugee-led organizations to be registered because of the bottlenecks in that process. Secondly, without registration, there is no challenges.
Roger, there's really distortion. I don't know if it's your internet connection or the device that you're using, but your voice is being distorted.
Am I back? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but still your voice is being distorted.
I think definitely the connection is having challenges. Okay, like I was saying, I was looking at now, how do we bridge this gap? You see, between organizations, there is also the issue of lack of trust. Then not to talk of organizations for persons with disability. If you design your project from the beginning without involving persons with disability and some way around it,
Hi, Roger. Sorry, your internet is being distorted. We're sorry about that. So I'm just going to read the comments in the chat, and then we shall wind up this discussion. Yeah, so someone by little education says, I wonder if part of the problem is that the big NGOs and funders, many people fund as many people as possible because of money. I am not saying it is good. I am just saying that people want to help many. So there needs to be a more inclusive attitude. Thank you so much, little by little education. I am sorry that we're missing out on this subject of our guest. I'd love to thank all of us, the listeners, the hosts, and also our guests for tonight's discussion. It has been very informative about the refugee context. The refugees are one of the hard-to-reach communities in Uganda. They are very secluded and isolated. I found this out last year when I was trying to reach the Association of Refugees with Disability. So you cannot comprehend the level of inequality that is within these communities, and this is escalated by the gender aspect, the disability state, and definitely being a refugee in Uganda. So on that note, I would like to thank all of us for our time and for the contributions to the space. It has been very interactive. We do thank the submissions of Gilbert and Little by Little Education. We do also thank the other listeners for their contributions in the chat. From me, good night, everyone. And from my co-hosts, any last words?
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.